So many women experience high levels of burnout, and I want to help you transform that into feeling energized and lit up about whatever it is that you're doing in your life. So, what is burnout? Burnout is basically the result of a long period of chronic stress. So, if you're undergoing stress and you're not resolving it, or you keep repeating the same patterns of how you're responding to stressors in your life over and over and over again, after a long time, eventually that will lead to burnout, where basically your system starts to shut down and make decisions for you. So, what is stress in the first place? So stress is basically a natural response that we have to external stimuli that we perceive as threatening. So you may have heard the example that is often given, if you're being chased by a lion, right? That's when you go into that sympathetic nervous system, and all kinds of processes happen inside your body to help protect you under those threatening circumstances. The problem is that in our modern world, we're often undergoing stress from situations that, number one, are not as clear as being chased by a lion, and they're also not something that will disappear like that. So for example, if you watch an actual prey animal be chased by a predator, you'll see that if they're able to survive that chase, they'll shake it off, literally shake it off from their body and go back to their normal lives, go back to grazing or whatever it is. For us, unfortunately, we may, wake up and be faced with something in the morning. Maybe we spill coffee on our clothes, right? Or the kids won't get their shoes on. We're stressed. We get into the car and then something happens on the road and we become stressed. The red light is taking too long. Then we get to work and someone says something to us and that we don't like, or we know we have an upcoming meeting that we're nervous about. So there's stress after stress after stress, right? Or I should say stressor after stressor after stressor. And when we're unaware of how we're responding to these things, we tend to kind of normalize the sensations that occur in the body. And then those physiological responses are continuing for extended periods of time, which can lead to all kinds of problems. So people who experience chronic illness often have certain qualities of how they cope with stressors. So we can get into that in another video. But today I wanted to talk about, first of all, I want to give you some tools. So that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be giving you 3 tools that you can use to help you de-stress, rest properly, and then in resting state is when healing occurs. So allowing you to heal, allowing you to recover by teaching you these methods that will help you de-stress and rest. All right, so stressors. They are perceived to be, they're external, right? So circumstances, the kids not getting their shoes on, the road rage, the guy cutting you off on the highway, hitting that red light or the red lights over and over again, right? They seem to all be external. But what really is happening, and that's creating the stress, is our internal response. So like I mentioned, we have a natural internal response. So it's a whole hormonal cascade, processes like blood flow is directed away from your digestion, it's directed away from your extremities, helping you to be able to run if you need to. So there's physiological processes happening. And part of what's happening on the inside and what's happening physically has to do with what's happening in our minds. So those responses are a direct result of how we perceive that threat, right? And like I mentioned, it's not always a tiger or a lion chasing us, right? It's something else. So let's say you lost your keys. What thoughts follow that event? Oh my God, I'm going to be late. This always happens. So-and-so keeps moving my keys. It's all their fault, right? There's a whole cascade of thoughts that occur before your body launches that stress response, right? Let's say you lost your keys and you said, good thing I'm leaving, good thing I'm getting ready an hour before I have to leave so that I can go find my keys. That's going to elicit a completely different feeling inside your body and a completely different emotional and physiological response, right? So it actually, our stress actually emanates from our thoughts, especially when we're talking about these kind of modern stresses that we experience today. Otherwise you just have to perceive that there's a threat, like a lion chasing you, your body reacts, you run, you hide, you do whatever, right? But nowadays we have to actually, think things through. And so their stress response is actually an internal response. It's coming from your reaction to what you're thinking. And those are the kinds of stresses that I want to help you deal with today. So what's happening there is that we are allowing then, so our thoughts then trigger this response, but then our body kind of takes over. So when we're in that stress response, our prefrontal cortex, our decision-making capacity, is diminished. So we're basically in a reactive mode where instincts take over, right? The body becomes the mind, and the body is kind of taking over. So one of the things that we really need to do is get the mind back in control, right? And take back over control of the body. And this body's a vehicle that we are using to get through this life. And we have to understand, number one, that we have the capacity to be in control of it, and that we don't have to listen to everything it says, and that we can then take charge and take leadership. We have to actually take leadership of our own bodies. And so these tools will help you do that as well. So we're going to be getting the mind back in charge. And then once the mind is back in charge, that's where we can then begin to kind of rewire our responses, rewire our habits, and how we react to the external stimulus, whether they be stressful or otherwise. So here's the 3 tools. So number 1, this is what basically everything that you do in life as you want to grow and improve has to begin here, and that is awareness. So the first tool is to cultivate awareness. Now, this is a process. It will take time and it will take practice. But what it is basically starting to tune in and to notice how your body feels. So right now, you can kind of uncross your legs if you're sitting or wherever you are. Just take note of how you're feeling in your body. Start to cultivate the awareness of just the physical sensations in your body. If you're in a place where you can close your eyes and take a breath, and then start to notice how you're feeling, right? So this will happen. Now, you can use this whenever you're faced with some kind of stressful event. So let's say you lose your keys. I want you to start to take notice. How do I actually feel in this moment? Someone cuts you off on the highway. Where am I feeling that in my body? What's happening? You might feel a tingling sensation. You might feel tightness in your chest, right? You want to start to just become aware of how you're responding to these external events. And from that awareness, that's basically the foundation of any changes that you want to make. It's very difficult to make changes. So you might have so many goals in your life. You might have so many ideas of how you want to show up in the world, who you want to be, what you want to do, right? And it's very hard to make those changes without first having an awareness of where you are today and who you're being today. And a very simple way to begin cultivating that kind of awareness is to start to notice what is happening. How do I feel inside my body? So that's one. What thoughts occurred when that thing happened to me? So I wanted to blame my kid for the reason that I'm stressed out because they wouldn't put their shoes on. But what were the thoughts that I thought? What went on in my head when I saw my kid taking his time, trying to put his, not putting his shoes on or refusing? What were the thoughts I was thinking? Because how I'm feeling and how I'm responding and acting and then the results I get are actually coming from those thoughts that are occurring in the moment. So having that awareness of those thoughts is so incredibly critical. And then you can also start to cultivate an awareness. Okay, so I had this feeling, I had this thought, I had these feelings in my body. What was my response? Right? So then you start to almost diagnose. It's like taking a step away from yourself and diagnosing what's going on. Like, this thing happened. That's the circumstances. Then I had these thoughts, and then I had these feelings, and then I responded in this way, right? I took this certain type of action. So you don't even have to do anything at this point, right? When it's about cultivating awareness, you don't even worry about taking action because, like I said, it's a foundation. So just work on building that foundation and cultivating that awareness time after time after time. Sometimes you might find this thing happened yesterday or earlier today, and I didn't take a moment to actually have awareness then, but I can look back at it now and kind of witness and observe what happened from, in the past. And that's another great way because you can analyze what you did in the past, and that will help you become more aware as you move forward into the future, especially if this is something new for you. So look at something that happened on another day or earlier in the day and start to just kind of analyze that and break that down. And it's important you do this without judgment. There's nothing wrong or there's nothing bad about the way that you respond. It's just based upon the way you've been showing up, the way you've been programmed, lots of things that happen in your childhood. I mean, there's an array of reasons. Those don't really matter in this moment. But the important point is don't judge yourself, okay? You are where you are what you are today, you are who you are today. You're going to be able to change, and part of that is also just accepting where you're at right now. So just cultivate awareness without judgment. So number 2 and 3 are more kind of practical tools. So number 2 is breathing. And I'm just going to give you one really simple and basic way to breathe that's going to help you get out of that sympathetic stress response into the more relaxed rest and digest nervous system. Okay, so this will trigger physiological responses inside your body. So by doing this breathing, I don't want you to negate how important it is. It's going to change which hormones are being released. It will literally even change your heart rate. Okay, so it's going to have a physical implication as well. So simple. All you need to do is take a nice deep breath through your nose, and then you're going to exhale through your mouth slowly. And you can even double the length of your exhale compared to your inhale. So let's say you inhaled for 4 or 5 counts, you can exhale for 8 or 10 counts. So anything that's longer on the exhale is going to help slow your heart rate down. And you can even experiment with this if you want to touch your heart or take your pulse and feel your heart rate. And then if you want to test it, you can actually feel it slowing down as you exhale very slowly with control. And so it's very interesting because I've seen people who, when they're in a really stressful situation, their breathing becomes much more shallow and much more quick. And a lot of people don't even realize that they have control over that, right? Because it is kind of emanating from the subconscious. You're again, that stress response is being mounted, right, by your body. And so you're taking back control when you slow that exhale down. When you control the breathing, you're taking back control of the body. That's why this is so important. It's an incredibly effective. So in a later video, I plan on giving you a lot more breathing tools, but I want you to just work with this one to begin with. It's so simple, easy to remember. It's just a shorter inhale through your nose and a longer, maybe even double the length of the inhale-exhale through your mouth. Okay, so very important that you're inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth. All right, and then the third tool is to take your gaze out as far as you can into the horizon. So now if you're at work and you're inside a small office, maybe a cubicle, maybe a room with no windows, right? One of the problems, okay, that's one situation, right? But most of us, what we're doing is we're staring at our phones. So our gaze is shortened and we go through our day with this very limited kind of box of where our eyesight is going. And interestingly, that is something that actually works hand in hand with that sympathetic nervous system, the stress response. When you undergo stress, your eyesight will actually narrow, your vision will narrow. And by broadening your vision, so looking out into a horizon and taking your gaze across the horizon, you're actually, again, taking back control over the nervous system. And so taking your gaze out through a window, if you have one, as far as you can, looking out towards the sky, towards the horizon, and allowing your gaze then to sweep across, that will work really well. If you're inside, I really do suggest taking a break, or whenever you do take a break, instead of only going to the bathroom or staying in your office or looking at your phone, it's much more beneficial to actually step outside of your office space, take a look, get outside in nature. Getting outside in nature has its own benefits, and take your gaze as far away as you can. If you're limited and you're like, no, I can't do any of that, then just take your gaze as if you can look through the wall. So you'll see that your vision will kind of blur and you just act like you can see right through that wall. And again, let your gaze sweep across like you're sweeping across a horizon. It can be an imaginary one, and that will have some of the benefits as if you were doing it for real. So it's better than nothing. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. I hope that these have been beneficial to you. And one of the last things I wanted to mention, because I do work specifically with women. So women have a much higher tendency, not just to have to deal with their own stress and contain their own stress and emotions, but we also tend to be the ones to absorb the stresses and anxieties of our loved ones, especially our spouses. So we have kind of an more extreme situation when it comes to dealing with stress. So I just wanted to make note of that because I just want to highlight how important this is, especially for women who are, managing your own lives, your own emotions, your own stressors, and then you're probably also taking on the stresses and anxieties of those people around you in your life. All right, so I hope this has helped. Tell me what you thought and how these tools have helped you. If you've been able to implement them, how did you feel? What situation did you implement it in, and what was the result? I would love to hear all of your feedback.